for us, this is a hard part.
Right.
But we've learned so much transitioning between Unreal Engine 5 version 1 to 2 to 2 point whatever we're on now.
Right.
We've learned so much and we've optimized so much that we're going to have a better product in the end. And
Right.
and understanding that, like, yeah, this sucks, but this is what progress feels like. This is what success feels like. This is what,
Well,
like,
I don't know if success feels
well,
like this, but
this is what the road to success feels like. Welcome to the Status Quo. I'm your host, Chance, also known as Sundered Gaming's lead unsolicited advice giver, and today I am joined by Johnny Boy, also known as Sundered Gaming's lead unsolicited critique giver. Mostly unwelcome. Today, we have a couple of topics we wanted to talk about. Being an up-and-coming indie dev company, wanted to talk a little bit about the struggles of putting together a team for indie development. Struggles of being a small developer, some of the issues that we run into on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the highs and lows of game dev, and then, like every other week, we wanted to give a shout out and a spotlight to a indie dev company. So let's go ahead, get down to it. The struggles of putting together a team. So most of this team came together because of you, John. So let's go ahead and hear your little bit of a story behind what you were looking for and why you picked everybody.
And just to state, the people that I picked were supposed to be playing different roles than they are right now, but that's just life.
I wasn't supposed to be an artist, but here I am.
Are you still an artist, though?
I think so.
Well, lost my train of thought now. What was the question?
So we've got 4 people on the team, right?
Right.
We've got Bear,
Correct.
lead narrative. We got
Correct.
Shad, lead art. We
Right.
got me, kind of a Charlie Foxtrot of a lot of things. And then we've got you. I'm not really sure what your job title is, but the struggles of putting together the team.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, well, pretty much, it was more like, who did I want to work with? The one thing that I took from my other job that they instilled in us is that, like, who do you want to keep on your team, right? Who would you take to a new store if you were to leave the new store? And essentially, I pretty much went to those people and thinking that, like, oh, I like this guy's storytelling. I like this guy go-getiveness. I like this guy's structure. And pretty much, offered you guys what would it take to leave that store. Because, I'm planning to start off just doing this solo, and because I know nothing about programming, right, or game development or anything like that. So it's like, I was gonna wet my.
You knew nothing. I was gonna say, I'm like, we're like a year into this. If you still don't know nothing, then we got some problems.
Right. Well, I'm talking to past tense here. So essentially, I was gonna dip my toes in first. Like, all right, let me see if I can put some things together, and then that way I can show you guys, be like, hey, look what I made, and go from there. But you guys were like so gung ho about it. I was like, whoa, this is a better reaction than I anticipated. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. It was a little bit. I mean, and like I said, you guys, you guys were my friends. So whether you guys were like, screw you, now I don't want to do this or not, I was figured I would get an honest answer from you guys. Yeah, no, finding talent is difficult. I can tell you that.
Wow. For anybody who's watching that hasn't watched any of our previous episodes, we are all actually previous Home Depot employees. So when he references who would you take to another store, that was kind of the reference he was making there. So let's talk a little bit about Bear. We're gonna get real uncomfortable here today.
Oh, you know.
Oh yeah.
Especially when he's not here to defend himself.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you may notice, we're like -2. So this is what I like to call the status quo light.
Light. Status quo light coming soon, which will actually be something possibly.
It's silenced?
Every time, John, every time. So let's talk a little bit about Bear. So looking at him from the outside, looking at him as a friend, looking at him as a possible business partner, what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses, what were the personality type that you were kind of looking at in that situation? We're gonna do this for everybody, so we
Right,
need to get everyone
right. No,
comfortable.
no, I got you. Mainly was when I originally wanted him to do it or to do what he does now is when we were actually creating our D&D characters, and we were coming up with backstories, and we would just keep bouncing ideas off each other, and it just kept expanding on, one on top of the other. It's like, wow, okay, well, and then also this from previous gaming experience, me and him tend to mesh pretty well. It's kind of like you always have those when you have a gaming group. You always have like the pair that kind of just like goes in and just like wrecks everything because they're in sync. I felt like that was Bear and I. Whenever he said, I mean, granted, you had your moments.
Yeah, but it was me, myself, and I with my moments.
Right. Especially when you had to clean off your keyboard.
Oh, that was great. We got to go off on that tangent real quick because that was a good story.
Okay.
So we're playing World of Warcraft one night. Was it ranked arenas? I want to say it was ranked arenas. So we're doing ranked arenas, and I'm having a couple beers, and John and Bear doing whatever. And we load into this.
Strategizing.
Yeah, they're strategizing. I'm just sitting over in the corner like, tell me what to hit, and I'll hit it. I'm doing something at the computer, and I reached across, and I came back, and I knocked a beer all across my keyboard. Well, we're sitting in the pregame lobby.
And we don't know this.
Yeah, they don't know this. I don't say anything. I throw my headphones off, and I like run to the kitchen. But so we're sitting in the pregame lobby like, oh, this is who we're going to attack. If they do this, we're going to do this. Like, we're 30 seconds away from starting this match, and I spilled this entire beer. Brand new beer. I was more upset about the brand new beer part. All over my keyboard, and I was like losing it. So I like run to the kitchen, grab a towel, bring it back over. My keyboard's like flipped upside down. I'm like shaking the snot out of it, and then I set it back down, and I put my headphones back on, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'm back. And I run over to where they're at, and within like...
And when he comes back, it's already been like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. And if any of you guys played any WoW arenas, I mean, sometimes game's already over by then. And we were like struggling at 3 versus 2 at that point.
So I like run over there. I use my divine steed to charge up the ramp. And then within 3 seconds, I've casted like 4 abilities and everybody's dead.
It was
I just
glorious.
Slaughtered all of them. And then we spent the next 5 minutes hysterically laughing. And then I was like, yeah, I spilled beer all over my keyboard. Like, whoops, forgot to tell you.
And then he couldn't replicate that magic again.
Yeah. I'm still like 800 rating or something.
Yeah.
No, we got up to like 16.
Yeah.
16 or 17. Yeah, it's still terrible. But regardless, better than 800.
Right.
Okay, so Bear, back onto that little story tangent. So the positives you saw in him, the weaknesses you saw in him.
Well,
if you tell me you couldn't find a weakness in any of us, you're full of it.
I don't want to look at the bad side of people. The only thing that I would think is that getting him to work with others would have been the biggest, but I would say his biggest hurdle.
Struggle? Yeah, hurdle. Right? That's a good way to word that.
And that's why, like, I kind of wanted, like, the people who I wanted them to mesh with the other people, right? I didn't want to just invite anyone just because, I don't want to have that outside factor. It's like, oh, okay, this guy doesn't like this guy, so I have to keep him separate. And then we have to play that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you can't share an office with this guy because you guys are just going to drive each other crazy. You can't do this because whatever. It's like, always having, like, those parties where, like, the one friend that doesn't come because this friend you asked first and he said yes or whatever. I don't want to have to do that type of politics, especially when running a business.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to say that, like, we won't have that, but, or have to make those tough choices where there's like, are they too valuable enough to stay or do we just let them go?
Mm-hmm.
But for now, when starting up, I kind of want to be as cohesive as we could. And that was my only worry because, you remember your first introduction with him.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely great. Absolutely great. I ended up being his pseudo best man in his wedding, so, I mean, it couldn't have been that terrible.
Correct, but still, like, you know how gruff he can be.
Yeah.
He's not called Bear for no reason.
Yeah, he's got a bear of an attitude. Or bear of a personality. I think that's what that customer said.
Right. But yeah, no, it's, yeah, so with him, like I said, the main thing I was just looking into the positives. Like, I think he'll come out with a great story. And again, we were just talking about as far as in the universe. And one of the things that we didn't like was just the inconsistency of where stuff came from. And it happens, in a lot of other sources, not just gaming. Happens in books, happens in movies, it happens, pretty much in every media to where they start off with something, right, which is great, and then they want to expand on it. And then when they start expanding on it, then they start adding like midichlorians. Like, really? You didn't have to explain the force to us. Like, we accepted it as it was, stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure that whatever we started made sense continuously throughout our gaming process, and as far as what we reveal to you guys through our games, well, should never be a retcon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it should always be cohesive and make sense.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we'll go on to the other guy that's not here. Chad. So our lead artist. What drove you to pull him in? What are strengths and weaknesses and personality struggles?
Well, for one, again, it wasn't for him to do the art. He was more on the side of like he's our DM, right? Our dungeon master. We played D&D with this guy, and the way that he's able to adapt and guide us into an adventure that regardless of whatever decision that we're making, because obviously if anyone who's DM'd before never goes the direction, it's like, oh yeah, they're supposed to make a left here. It's like, no, they're gonna find a way to barrel through the right side of a concrete wall just to see what's on the other side because someone detected something glowing. But he's able to make it to where we end up having like some epic adventures, and I know with him and Bear, I thought they would be able to come up with something epic, not knowing that Bear had his whole other story already planned.
Oh yeah,
right, which is book 1's coming out soon. It's just yeah. So originally, I wanted him to kind of be with Bear as far as in the art, or not in the art, in the narrative sense in the story, because we don't have a story for our games. What do we have, right? But then once he said that he wanted to do like the art side, I'm like, oh sweet, I don't have to find an artist, right? Because that's one thing I can't draw. I can't even 3D model. I don't have the patience for it. I look at the screen, I open up Blender, and then I close Blender and just be like, nope, not doing it.
Yeah, well, mine was open Blender up, look at it, say I need a beer, and then come back to it.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, even like popping up a sphere, like, okay, I popped up the sphere. Now what?
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. So you would say his gung ho-ness for taking on new things was kind of that strength that you were like, oh, we're definitely gonna play off of that.
Well, I knew he was always.
Use your words, buddy.
I had to get there. I know he was always 100% on what he wanted to do, right? When work or with his work ethic, as far as when it came to Home Depot and stuff like that. So having that transfer over to here, and I know we're all learning new skills. So the fact that he didn't know anything, like, it didn't bother me anything, because like I don't know anything either. Because so we're all in the same spot. As long as you're willing to learn and do the stuff, then to me it's gonna be fine. So yeah, as far as that goes, that's like I said, he wanted him in something else, and then he volunteered for this. So to me, I was all right. I got 2/3 of a company going, right? I think I could to make this happen. Because I knew I was going to do the programming, because I'd done a little programming like back in the day, but then I don't want to go off on a tangent or anything. Suffice to say that I didn't want to become a dime a dozen programmer out there graduating, so I chose a different path. And stuff happens, and now I'm here. If you want the life story, go to what was it?
Episode 1
No, Busch League
Oh
Gaming.
yeah, Busch League Gaming. You can hear John's whole story.
My
His
origin,
his origin story.
the birth of Nick Fury.
Busch League Gaming calls him Sundered Gaming's Nick Fury.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw like their picture up on the screen, and then there will be a link to their podcast in the description. Well, there's only one more member to talk about here, John.
It's standing right in front of me.
Yeah,
The one I didn't want to ask. I'm kidding. No, you obviously, I had something planned for you, and I told you what I had planned for you.
Yeah,
Right? You were going to be the one that would get everybody to work.
yeah, project manager essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I knew you didn't have any other skills set.
Wow. No other skills. Well, that's what you.
Well, as far
That's
as
what you get for working retail for 5 years.
corrected, as far as your passes. Well, I don't need you as an EMT. I don't need you as a firefighter. I don't need you as a fire starter. And
We're not discussing that.
So yeah, I was like, but he is a motivator, and I know any project assigned to him, he'll be able to get done, whether he knows the subject matter or not. So, the only, and then if you want to know your first,
Yeah,
downfall,
let's go, John. What's my weakness?
your weakness was your tactfulness towards other people to get them to get motivated.
Oh, I'm not tactful at all. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you straight to your face. You're a useless sack of nuts.
Correct. And so that was the worst problem that I was going to have in the future. I knew we could handle it because we're all friends, right? And we're used to his, abrasive nature. But when you bring someone in new, I was more worried about him scaring them off and be like, there goes another one. Because, not to say anything bad about any artists out there, but they are more on the sensitive side than,
they're delicate.
They're expressive.
I think
They're expressive.
Our store manager at the time actually explained this to me because I was a little bit of a.
No, you weren't a little bit. You are what you are.
Yeah. But he said when you talk to people, especially in the industry we were in, specialists, so people who deal with like creating orders and creating like
Sales.
specifically kitchen designers.
Oh,
because
okay.
they're artists and they're designers and they want the freedom. He's like,
he's
like, you have to think of them as a flower. He's like, you have to give them the space to bloom every so often. But then there's some times where that entire, flower bush, whatever thing, has to be trimmed. And you have to reel them back in a little bit and bring them back down. He's like, but when you beat them back down, you still need to let go and give them space to bloom again. And I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and yet the most brilliant thing at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
Needless to say, it didn't stick, but. So that being said, getting all of us together and understanding that we were all friends and that we were all.
But like I said, at the beginning, it was all just hypothetical, right? Because I didn't want to pull you away until I had almost like a guarantee, like, okay, I've saved up this much. I can actually pay you to start and not just be like, oh, let's go ahead and go.
You're paying my salary right now.
Wow.
My salary of
$0.
$0.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah, that was a good time. Good time. But that being said, being friends, being, having all the extracurricular stuff we do outside of just work.
Right.
Were you concerned at all about what the dynamic was going to be, all of us coming into this?
No, because, I mean, again, we came together, so I already know what the dynamic was going to be like, so I wasn't worried too much.
You weren't afraid of hurting people's feelings?
No,
I sure wasn't.
Especially when, you give me a duck blind for your first tower ever.
That was, I wonder if I have a picture. I have a picture of it somewhere.
Do you?
I might throw it up on screen.
Okay.
Freaking hilarious.
Save that for the editor, production manager.
Yeah. He's not very helpful. Wow. You had yeah, shut up. You had no concerns. That's kind of a surprise because I definitely did.
Well, again, I wasn't expecting you guys to say yes. Let's go ahead and do this.
No, but even when we were all said, yeah, let's do this. Like, what were your concerns after that?
Holy shit! Can I deliver?
Square counter number 1. Woo!
Damn it.
2, I think.
Well, I guess that kind of, yeah. All right. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, so much. So after the fact, so you're like, okay, this is gonna go. Like,
Right.
what from
I
there?
got really nervous at how fast you guys were going. Like, oh, we got an office. Oh, we're going to moving down to Phoenix. Oh, we got this. Like, oh, we're moving. But I'm like, I haven't gotten through my classes yet. I'm still learning. And then we switch engines.
Oh yeah, that was a rough one.
But it's for the better.
That
It's for
was
the better.
rough.
It's for the better.
Was it?
Yes, I like it a lot more. Better.
Okay, well, it's pissing me off, but we'll talk about that later.
You'll learn to adapt, damn it.
I'll learn to adapt, make that number 3. Yeah, that was rough. Okay. So that being said, all of us coming into this and going at this as
Why are you in a different position?
Am I in a different position? I don't know. I'll use the transition screen. So all of us being, not experienced in game development, obviously we all played video games for a far too long of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But coming into this, not knowing what we're doing, what have been the struggles that you've seen so far, being a small developer, being a company who, wants to make change within the gaming industry, but we're a year and some change into this and we haven't released anything yet. Not to say that we're all gung-ho to release crappy games, because we're not going to do that. We've all agreed that if we finish Ages of Laterra, coming soon, maybe a month.
Yeah.
If we finish Ages of Laterra, we play it, and then we're like, this is terrible, that we would just scrap the entire project.
Right.
So, that being said, what have the struggles been? What have the issues been?
Well, it's the struggles I can talk about is mainly on the coding side and putting like everything together, not knowing how big of a project. Because when we were discussing as far as, all right, what do we want in this? Right, what do we want to take out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Right, what mechanics do we want to add that are new? What things that we should keep? All that, all that minutia that we came up with. It's like, all right, well, that's great. Now I get to code it. Crap. What am I doing? So it wasn't like, it wasn't not that I didn't learn anything from the lessons. It was like, okay, well, now I need to start specifically need certain skills. Yeah, no, I got you. Production team manager person. So as as I'm coding, I'm having to search new things and then try to implement it, see if it works, and then it doesn't work because I have something else that's doing something else that's preventing this from looking this, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to fix this first before I can get this to work, and then now it works, and it's like, okay, and then, oh, guess what? We're gonna add a new function. Oh, crap. All right, well, let's see what I can do with what I have existing. If I can't make it work existing, then I have to add something new to it, and hopefully that doesn't break the old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like which I do give credit to like more game developers out there as far as when they come out with a patch, right? Where a patch fixes something and totally breaks something else that wasn't intended. And I can't explain it how it happens. It's just you fix something that you think that, solves the issue, the leak, but apparently by plugging that leak, I drilled too much into another wall and it's now leaking on the other side for some apparent reason. And technically the bug was always there, but it was just never prominent until you fix the first leak. And I think what happens with a lot of development as far as when they fix something just to find something else that's broken. Like it was always technically there, it's just, now that the other thing's fixed, it's more prominent now.
So that's been your struggle code-wise, but just as a company, as new people coming into the industry, what's been your biggest struggles?
Well,
take coding out of it, just your biggest struggles.
As far as struggles as us as a team, I would say the biggest thing was expectations. Right? It's like, oh, I should be able to finish this by, such and such date. When in reality it's like, well, you never done it before, so how long will it actually take you?
Mhm.
Like, you may have a thing in your head, be like, "Oh, I just have to make, a tower, make it this way, pull this, extrude this, do that," right? It's like, "Oh, that'd take me like 30 minutes," right? And then, like, 2 days later, it's like, "Oh, I finally have my tower." I'm like, "Well, okay, well, that took you like 2 days longer than what you said we was gonna do." It's like, "Yeah, I know, I kept changing it and rebuilding." It's like, but I expected that to happen with everything because whatever I initially think, oh, it should take me about an hour to try to figure this out. And then I go to implement it and it doesn't work. Well, obviously, my original implementation was wrong. So it's like, crap, how do I do it? And then I find out, no, my original implementation was correct. I was just wrong at how I was applying it. So it's like, you have that whole circle of nonsense that happens, especially with, in the team.
Mhm.
And then,
I feel like that's actually a really big thing, is like you set those expectations for yourself, like,
right,
hey, I'm going to accomplish this in this timeline.
right,
But when you're on the outside looking at something you've never done before
hmm,
and you think it's so easy, you think you're going to have it knocked out of the park, no problem.
right,
And then you actually tackle that situation.
correct,
If you set those like way too high expectations for yourself, you're bringing yourself down
right.
because you miss your deadline and then you're like, I'm useless. I don't
And
know what
and
I'm
then you have
doing.
like people depending on you. It's like, and then you ask, so where are we at? And there's like, same place we were at last week. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
So
then you feel like you're letting them down, and it's just like, which is not good for morale for the team because yeah, at the beginning everyone's learning new things. Like, oh, hey, check this out. Look what I can do. Look at this. Look at that. Like, you turn on the light bulb, okay? But like to you, it's like this was like the greatest thing ever, right? And
absolutely.
I'm like, okay, well, I can see how cool that is, right? And then like to me, it's like you can't see anything that I do because it's all just freaking code, right? And if the guy doesn't go from A to B, he's like, what the heck are you doing? I'm trying to make a move, and then when I make it move, I'm like, yes, and it's like, okay, but his animation is like just he's sliding it
He
across the
just
room,
sliding across the floor.
like, oh my gosh, what do you
Yeah.
want from me?
Yeah. I think setting those expectations definitely from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all should have like sat down and had that conversation and been like, "Hey, we're all new here. Like the expectation is not to have a game in 2 months. Like
Right,
it's just not
or
happening.
6 months,
We're
or
we're we're building everything from scratch. We're
right,
not reusing, old assets from old games. We're
right.
not buying a whole bunch of stuff to
Yeah,
create a
we're
game.
trying to do it as much from scratch as possible.
Yeah.
To
Like
claim that hey, this is our
yeah,
content.
we're trying to learn. So had we set better expectations for ourselves in the very beginning, I think a lot of this would have gone a lot smoother. Not to say it's been rough, but it's been
Well,
eye opening for sure.
I think the going into the next subject that you wanted to talk about, I think that kind of leads to
Oh,
what
it
we're
does.
going to talk about, which was burnout, right?
Oh yeah.
So having all these expectations and then just keep falling behind, eventually you're going to suffer through burnout because like, oh man, I'm going. It's like we're not seeing the progress that we want to see, and it's just like, are we ever going to see it? It's like the light there, or is it like miles away? Like, did we stop? Are we going backwards? What's happening to me? Every like when I suffered through burnout, I realized, okay, I'm just focusing too much on one thing. Right? I may have like a lot of other things on my plate that I have to do, but I'm like hyper focused on this one thing, and then then I get burnt out. Right? So then I go away for like 2 days, don't think about it, and then I come back and I tackle something else, and then 3 days later, oh, I just solved the first thing I wanted to solve.
Mhm.
And I mean, right now I've been fortunate enough to we have so many things that we have to work on that like if I get stuck, I need to tell myself if I'm working on something for more than an hour and I get no progress on it, I just need to dump it, work on something else that I can get progress on.
Mhm.
Because at least that way I have that sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Like, okay, I may not got what I wanted done, but oh, I found out that I fixed all these other issues that would have been a pain in the ass for me to fix when I realized that they were there after I solved this one. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And like burnout's real and I've noticed it a couple times in myself just
Mm-hmm.
where like I'd spend a 14-hour day at the office and I'd accomplish an hour's worth of work.
Right. Or you done like we have like 6 months of work and we have to start over.
Oh, don't even get me started. Like, yeah, that sucked. But that was your fault.
Technically, yours too.
How? How is it
Since
mine?
you made the shit too big, counted over 5.
I mean, it was 6. But yeah, but I fixed all my stuff, but you couldn't fix yours.
No. Because you made the town so big, it kept wanting to load everything at the beginning. It's so the way that it worked for those who are in game development is that he made these assets for a town that we have, and I have everything referencing to the meshes of these towns, and because everything is referenced and it's applied to the game mode, everything gets loaded at the beginning of the game. So it was trying to load like 11 gigs worth of stuff that you had in there, right, at the beginning of the game, and it would always crash because obviously it couldn't load 11 gigs. When then I learned about like soft reference, right, which is a key thing to do, and then that fixed it. But I wasn't able to do that with the current game that we had because I didn't know what was wrong with it until we started over and realized, oh, that's where the problem was.
Started over for the second time.
Second time, yeah.
Yes.
What was the first time? We just went to different versions.
No. We re-imported. So we. Oh, I'm just thinking of other stuff I had to do.
Yeah, I was thinking. No, this is the one time that we had to actually start from scratch.
Yeah, that we actually started from scratch, but it was it was after I rebuilt like a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
So I feel like I've restarted twice now.
Correct. But you're doing everything differently now, a lot more effective.
Oh, 100%.
The first time we were doing it, we're just doing it just to get it out there, right? Get it done, and it looked good, but then they put it and go on this. So I was like, okay, well,
yeah,
that's
it was
a new point.
Yeah. Your phone turned into like an atomic reactor like that, and you're
Right,
like, why is my phone so hot?
And then it's
terrible.
like, well, now won't even start. Like, okay, well, we did something wrong.
Yeah. I feel like the more and more that we get into this and we learn and we understand and we get to do, the better off we're gonna be. Does it suck to have to rebuild the entire game from scratch again?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of our burnout's coming from, as far as in the more recent case, because like
100%.
I already did this before. It's like don't have to do this again. But
I'm not looking forward to rebuilding the entire town again. I'm not looking forward to
the town's there.
No, I have to rebuild it. We'll discuss this later. It has to be rebuilt. I have to re-import a whole bunch of tower meshes just because of the way that they came over didn't do it correctly.
Right.
And then now I'm going back through and rebuilding all of the landscaping and maps and all that other stuff. So it's like, in my mind, this is all.
You already had about like half the maps done. So in theory,
I had 3/4 of the maps done. Yeah,
okay,
no. Go to the old file.
All right, maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
I want to say that some of them weren't as completed as others, but okay.
But that being said, like to have to struggle through all of this, to have to like just look at everything that's going on, and be like, man, this sucks. Like you start to think like, is this even what I want to do? Why am I doing this? It's a waste of my time. Blah blah. Like your mind just starts going down that rabbit hole of like, this is a waste.
Right,
like I'm not good at this.
Correct.
But then you start to think, you're like, well, 90% of people who try to put out a video game, I don't know if that statistic's accurate, but like people who try to put out a video game, they hit those hard parts and they're like, that's where they stop.
Right.
For us, this is a hard part.
Right.
But we've learned so much transitioning between Unreal Engine 5 version 1 to 2 to 2 point whatever we're on now.
Right.
We've learned so much and we've optimized so much that we're going to have a better product in the end. And and understanding that like, yeah, this sucks, but this is what progress feels like. This is what success feels like. This is what
I don't know if success feels like this, but
this is what the road to success feels like.
Right.
It sucks.
Right.
It's like there's some days where I come to the
if it was easy, everyone would be ready.
Yeah. There's some days I come to the office and I really don't want to be here because I'm like, I'm redoing all of the same stuff that I've redone so many times, and like I get in my head about it, but then like I'm starting to look at everything that's terrible versus being like, what good have I gotten out of this? Like there's so much more good to come out of it than it is for me to, cool, I have to redo something, but I did it so much better this time.
Correct.
So
like just your evolution of towers should be evident enough alone.
Oh my lord!
That you every time that you rebuild it, it comes out fantastico. So
fantastico was that your extent of Spanish there, John?
Sure.
Okay.
If you want to go there. But no, it's just I mean, you look at these models here. This is not how he started. Um, and it's yeah. So to see your growth as far as when it comes to art and building structure, it's just to me, it's mind baffling. It's baffling me because I'm definitely impressed.
That's the nicest thing he's ever said to me.
I've said it in the past without cameras.
Oh,
But I've also critiqued how,
yeah. Don't even.
how crappy some of your stuff has been. But
yeah, I didn't realize we had the Eiffel Tower in our game.
right?
Looks like the Epcot Center. Ridiculous. So on top of that, on top of burnout, on top of feeling like you're not worthy of doing this, I think another big struggle that we've come across, and I know we've had to sit down and talk about it as a group of being like, hey, you're taking on things that you don't need to take on because you just feel like it, because you feel like you're responsible for it. Like that's not how this works.
Right.
We struggled with communication at the very beginning a lot.
Right.
Like nobody wanted to say what they were doing, where they were at, what they were working on.
Well, because it felt like it wasn't enough progress, right?
Yeah.
But, at least to me, and with Bear, because when he was doing the thing, because we didn't necessarily need him for what we were doing as far as for this game, as far as narratively, because we already knew it's out of place, it's out of time, so it's not in any cohesive timeline as far as when it comes to our main story. But he was writing the story for the first book, and how fast he was going, it was just astounding. We were getting chapters a day, and it was just it was crazy how fast he was going. And here I am, just be like, I got the basic structure to spot a tower, and it's like, oh really? It's like, well, where is it? It's like, well, I don't have a tower to show you.
Yeah.
And so I just had these cinder blocks just shooting, these wrought iron things. But hey, at least it was working.
Yeah.
To some extent. And debugging some of those towers was just horrendous.
Yeah.
And then I found out there was something already built in.
Yeah, your mortar tower.
Oh my god.
The amount of hours you wasted on that, and then
no, it wasn't hours. It was weeks. I wasted weeks on that thing.
And then to realize that there's literally a function inside of Unreal Engine for
Correct.
it, you're like,
yeah,
this
correct.
Yeah. But I definitely think, as a whole, we all tried to take on too much, just because. And there were things like we were doubling up on. I was trying to take care of something at the same time you were trying to take care of it, and we just never talked about it. And then one day we just come together and we're just like, oh, we're both dealing with this? Like, oh, no, here, take it. Like, I don't want this. I was just doing it because I thought it needed to get done.
Right.
So, definitely communication. There's a lot of communication that goes into it. But your point on, the very beginning, Bear was getting a lot of work done. His book, Battle of Lindley, which, coming soon. I mean, it was finished months and months ago.
Right.
And then he's just been going through the process of doing edits and trying to
correct. Make sure everything the story flows correctly.
But to take us and to take our look at it, not to say writing is easy, because I know it's not, because I read through that book and I know I couldn't have done it.
Dude, I could have done it. I don't want my short stories look like, and they're not
I can read through chapters in his book, and I can make slight edits, and I can make suggestions, and I can help with overall story, but I could never sit down and write that. You could give me 3-4 years to just write a book, and I couldn't get to the level that he is at.
Correct.
My brain does not work that way.
Right, especially to have a cohesive.
But he couldn't code.
Right.
He couldn't do my art.
Right.
So a really great quote, and I don't know who said it, and I'll throw it up on the screen with who said it, because although if you listen to the
I was gonna say,
everything goes back to Churchill. So
right, Churchill or Archimedes.
No, it wasn't Archimedes. It was
No,
now I don't even remember. Churchill or
Aristotle.
Aristotle, yeah. I was gonna say Confucius.
No, it wasn't Confucius.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
It was
Aristotle said that if you succeeded money, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of all joy. So for you as the coder to look at what Bear is doing with his story and how fast he's working,
but just even to see your progress, right? Because yours is visual progress, and oh, he is getting better. I'm just writing lines of code.
Yeah, but to compare yourself to somebody else who's in a completely different situation,
Mm-hmm.
doing a completely different thing, it's disheartening to you, but it's also a waste of your time.
Right.
Why would you compare where you're at to where I'm at when we're not even working on the same thing?
Correct.
At the end of the day, yes, we're working on the same project,
Right.
but that doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
because if I finish what I'm working on, that just gives me the opportunity to work on so much other stuff.
Right. Like this.
So all you should really be able to do is look at that and be like, awesome, now he can work on this. Awesome, now we're gonna get this done faster. Instead of looking at it and being like, well, I'm moving too slow. I'm doing terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, because that just leads into like imposter syndrome essentially.
Right.
Like you're sitting there, you're making all this accomplishments, you're making your goals, you're meeting your deadlines.
What is imposter syndrome?
I would have to Google it to give you the full definition. But imposter syndrome essentially is like you're doing what you're attempting to do and you're accomplishing it,
Mm-hmm.
but you still don't think that you're good enough to do it. And for the longest time with my art and with my towers and my designs, that's where I was. I could
Even
build
with all
you
the compliments I gave you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with about my Epcot Center.
Well, yeah, but
Your unsolicited criticism.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
look where it's at now.
Yeah, right. All that time I spent in Blender doing all these different things and working on all these different projects and then still looking at my art and being like, I'll never be an artist. Like this just isn't what I do. I can't do this. And then 6 months down the road, I'm still thinking I'll never be able to do this. None of this is looking right. None of this is going to turn out. And then finally,
have some like.
oh no, trust me. I've looking then and now, I can just be like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I can find my original map that you related to Arathi Basin, and then I'll throw.
Was it a Arathi Basin or was it Blood Gulch?
No, it was Arathi Basin.
Okay.
I'll try and find my original map, and then I'll post them on the screen. But then to have my moment with the gnome tower.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally this flick of a switch in my mind of like, oh, I can be an artist. Like I didn't need any reference pictures. I didn't need any design critiques. I didn't need any. Well, I did, but not on that specific project. I only designed the gnome tower like 6 times.
Right.
But on that very last one, I was so blown away by what I did that I was like, okay, I got this. Like this is great.
Right.
But that whole time I'm sitting there with imposter syndrome thinking like, this is a joke. I'll never go anywhere with this because I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm not an artist. I don't have the mindset for this. So I think coming into game development, a lot of people are probably going to have that mindset of like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they really just need to like push through because
you can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you except for you.
Correct.
Right? It doesn't matter what anyone else says as long as you're able to complete what you wanted to complete.
Absolutely.
Right. And yeah, you can take critique into his play as far as like that looks like dog shit. It's like this beautiful dog shit.
Was that a Princess Bride reference?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Okay. That was weird. Anywho.
I
don't know why you used the weird voice.
Oh, just because I could. But I kind of had like that same revelation from coding because essentially like when you're looking stuff up, right? Essentially I'm using other people's code, so I'm not really doing it by myself until it came a point to where, holy crap, I'm actually writing some of this code myself, and it's new code, and it's not. I mean, it's not new code. I'm pretty sure someone else has done it, but I didn't have to go searching for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to figure it out on my own on how to get this to work without looking someone else's work up and copying them and be like, okay, how can I implement this into mine now?
Mm-hmm.
And so like me, I even felt like more of an imposter because I'm just copying other people's code just to mishmash together to hopefully get it to work. But ever since I like redid or having to start over, like it's all been me just programming it without having to look it up, and I'm like, okay, I feel a whole lot better now because like I look at the code that I had before, I'm like, why did I do this? And the code that I have now is like, wow, this is so much more streamlined, and yeah, so it's
a little humbling.
Correct. But it does feel good that like, oh, I can do this now, right?
Mhm.
And I don't worry about having to look some stuff up anymore, right? I'm not feeling like cheating um or even not smart for having to look something up.
Mhm.
I don't know what word I was trying to go there. So
Dumb.
right, or sure, um, or uneducated, just
Yeah.
because I'm having to look something up. But it's like in reality, it's like, well, I don't know anything, so it shouldn't be a shame for me to look it up.
Correct.
And two, even if I do see the guy's code, I can probably turn it to my own. I don't have to like do a carbon copy of what he does, maybe for the first time, just to understand what's going on,
Mhm.
and then be like, okay, I see where the mechanics are going.
Yeah.
No, it's not my phone.
I think that was mine.
Yeah,
Interesting.
which
Huh.
is yours is recording,
Odd.
right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of odd. But regardless, no, that's definitely true. All of us learning all of this from scratch was definitely a struggle from the beginning. But
Hmm.
there's so many resources out there.
Right.
One really great thing if you're trying to learn Unreal Engine is Unreal Sensei. He's got this amazing class on YouTube. It's like a 5 hour long. He shows you a little bit of code. He shows you a little bit of landscaping, a little bit of material, a little bit of level design. But it's a 5 hour class
Hmm.
for free.
Oh wow.
And then I actually went and bought his master class,
Right.
which I want to say is like 120 hours worth of class.
Oh
And
wow.
you like build two separate games, you do a whole bunch of level design. There's so much stuff in there.
Right.
100% worth the investment. Like I haven't even scratched like 40 hours worth of his content yet,
Right.
and I've already learned so much.
Nice.
And it's just one of those things where it's like if I'm working on a project or like I want to learn something new and I have the time, I just open it up and go find a different video.
Right.
Because some of them are like, oh, steps 1, 2, 3, whatever, but then some of them are just like one-offs. So I can just go learn about transitioning level design
Right.
where you create the boxes and then it transitions you between it loads in the level as you're walking through based on what section of the game you're
Right. The
in.
level streaming.
Yeah, level
Yeah.
streaming. Yeah.
I was like,
So like I wasn't really interested in it, but I watched it the other day and I was like, this is brilliant. This is
right.
so unbelievable. Like you're
Right. Which I thought
saving.
that was more on the coding side for
It
me to
is.
do.
I was
Okay.
just
Because like, yeah, I looked at.
he touches on a lot of stuff.
I was looking at that and I was like, oh, that's how they do it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so much you can find and learn before you even start. And it's 100% worthwhile to just go and watch some of these Unreal Engine videos and then create some of the stuff that these people are doing and then feel for yourself that like, okay, yeah, this is doable. And then sit down and make a game plan for like, oh, this is the game I want to make. This is how I want to do it. But once again, you're just starting out. You're brand new to it
I,
all. Set achievable deadlines. And if you miss
and
those, it's okay.
what I would say is make a simple game first.
Yeah, don't go our route.
Right. As simple as our game may be, it's like, oh, it's just a tower defense. But there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to add to it as far as when it comes to management or money management, stuff like that, and resource management and missions and stuff like that. Just start off something simple that we played almost infinitely, like a kind of like an asteroids, right?
Well, and then but that's the Unreal Sensei thing.
Right.
You build two games with him.
Right.
One's just like a simple puzzle game,
Mhm.
and then one I can't remember what the other one is. But like you get from A to B or
Right.
A to Z,
Right.
an entire game built essentially.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of those in Udemy too that you have like a complete game at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's pretty basic, right? It's up to you to add whatever flair that you want to add to it. But like I said, if you're starting out, especially if you're like by yourself, just think simple and be proud of what you created because you created it from nothing. Even if you're taking lessons from somebody, it's like, well, it's your thing. You design how it goes and how it flows. So,
And I think that's also one thing about Unreal Engine that I truly appreciate is you can release 30 games with Unreal Engine for free. Unless one of those games hits that $1 million mark, you don't have to pay anything
right.
for the use of the engine. And they have so many free assets. They have monthly. I need to
Well,
check. I need to check the monthly free. I haven't checked that yet.
They also have a lot of good paying assets too.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and
you
like
get
good priced assets.
correct, and it's don't be afraid to use those. Like at first, I was very at the
Here's
beginning was very against using bought assets because like, well, it's not ours,
here,
right? Someone else
here's
created it.
here's where the wisdom of age came in for us. Chad, our lead artist,
Mm-hmm.
bought a VFX pack. He understood the concept of VFX. He understood how to manipulate them, but he bought a VFX pack, and John got real butthurt because he was of the mentality of it's not ours, so now you've cheapened our game. But that's not necessarily true
Right.
because while yes, we may have used a base asset from another pack, we've manipulated it, we've changed it to the point of adding flair that we wanted to put it into what we thought would be best for our game.
Mm-hmm.
And even myself, I was a little butthurt about it at first because I was like, I could have just bought a pack too, but we wanted you to take care of VFX, so why are you like buying stuff? And it actually came down to, while yes, I could sit here for hours and hours and hours and hours developing and creating all these different VFX, why not use what's already there for us and then
Mhm.
adjust it to be what we want it to be? Like, because I could make an entire, fireball VFX that took me 4 hours to create, and I had to go through 6 different programs to do whatever I needed to do to it. Or I could get that free asset that Unreal Engine is giving me
Right.
and then manipulate it to what I want.
Right.
And both John and I are looking at it like, wow, that makes so much more sense than just starting from scratch and like being frustrated as all get out for hours on end.
Right.
So that's where the wisdom of age came in a little bit.
Right. And the thing is that like if you're going to be the coder, be the coder. Don't worry about like, oh, I don't know how to make effects and stuff like that. Well, that's when you buy the effects, because once you buy the effects, then you start learning what the effects does. Then you could probably make your own in the future. But if you're the artist, then just focus on creating art. You know, if there's assets that will help facilitate that, then get the assets. At least you can learn something from them as far as how they're built and what they use to wrap or what have you. Um, you don't necessarily have to start from scratch like we did, but I mean there is something to say from starting from scratch
Mm-hmm.
as far as the knowledge that we have. Because I can tell you for sure, for every mistake I made, I learned 10 times more.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have here to talk about, small developer and
Right.
our struggles and maybe some helpful hints and tips for future developers. You never know. But actually, to stay kind of consistent with our normalcy, even though we're on the status quo light today, we did want to still talk about our dev spotlight. So one game that we all purchased a while back, and we actually streamed it, which was kind of fun, but it's definitely not a conducive game for streaming.
Well, not conducive for us because we're all schemers and planners. So when we scheme and plan, we don't talk.
Oh yeah, we're
So
terrible.
you just sitting there watching us, just staring at the screen.
Yeah,
What's he doing? What's
I'm
he
like
doing?
I'm like texting Bear underneath
which
the
way is he
table.
going?
Like
Really?
I was hardcore strategy. It was like the day we played Game of Thrones, where I was like, I
Oh my
literally had
gosh.
deals with everybody at the table, and then I watched as everyone turned on each other, and I'm like amassing my lands, and I'm like, yeah,
That was
it's okay.
such a stupid game.
We'll never play that again because I'll never be able to win. Now
All
everybody will
too
be out to get me in
Right.
that game every time now. Anywho, that being said, Gremlins Inc. is a great computer
Board game.
board game based computer game put out by Charlie Oscar Lima Tango Interactive Entertainment. So it's Colt Interactive Entertainment, but any of their industry pages, like if you go to their Steam or their LinkedIn, it's just Charlie Oscar. So I'm not sure what's up with that one, but they're a small dev company. They put out one other game.
8 people.
Eight people, and I'm actually not even sure that 8 of those are employees because they're kind of just referenced on their LinkedIn. They're not necessarily given any titles within the company. That being said, the games that they have released, quality, fun to play, requires you to actually think about what you're doing and what's going on. And then it's not one of those games where as soon as you open the game, it's throwing 30 DLC packs in your face saying, "Hey, download this other stuff." Like, there's genuine playability of the game over and over again because it's always different. It's always, no matter how many different times you play, no matter how many different people you play with, you have different characters you can play. You have different paths you can take. And then
Because there's
obviously,
like multiple ways to win.
yeah,
That's what makes it like very replayable. You
yeah,
don't just like, oh, I got to make it to Candyland.
correct. So it's very, very interactive, very in depth for just being a simple game. And I think it's $20 on Steam, but worth it in my mind. I mean, it's a game that we haven't had a lot of time to sit down and play, but it's one that you could put at the computer and just be on Discord with your friends while you're playing not playing another game, but like I would be doing work while we're sitting there playing Gremlins Inc. And it's one of the very few games where I could
Still have fun playing the
yeah,
game.
where I could still have fun playing the game, enjoy having a good time with my friends, and still get work done. Which I spend more hours than I would care to admit working. So it's for me, it's conducive to my life.
I mean, but that's good though. I mean,
that I work so much.
but no, that you want to work, right? It's not like, oh, I have to go to work. I have to put in all these hours. You're like, okay, I want to get this done. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
it's more, it's happy work.
Some days it's happy work.
Or at least I would hope it'd be happy work. I would imagine you just being at home, being angry, like, oh god, dang, I have to do this, and freaking, I'll show you Egyptian tower, mother. Ah.
Anywho, so go ahead, check out Charlie Oscar Lima Tango Interactive Entertainment. They're good dev, and I hope to see a bit more coming from them in the future. For sure.
Oh yeah.
And then our last topic for the day, just a little bit of bright news coming from our favorite developer to talk about.
Oh, Microsoft?
Well, it's not Microsoft yet.
Oh, no, Microsoft yet.
Blizzard Activision. So
Or the Blizzard side of Activision. The colder side.
Sure.
The Blizzard, you know. What was that?
So Blizzard
If a
Entertainment.
production manager was, already ready, he would have it prompt.
Oh, hush. Blizzard Entertainment has partnered with Mila Kunis, who, for those of you who don't know, is from Ukraine, to essentially create a pack for
Ukrainian relief.
Yeah, Ukrainian relief, which is a pets pack for World of Warcraft. So we're gonna go ahead and play their little Ukrainian relief thing and
We'll talk about it. Yeah. So far, it's team.
My name is Mila Kunis. I am here to help raise money for Ukrainian relief. I was raised in Ukraine. I came to the States in '91.
At least
but I think more importantly than being from the country, I think the importance of this war will affect the greater good of the world than just that part of the world. When the war started, I think I myself was kind of waiting for some magical power at B to be like, okay, we're gonna step in and do all these amazing things, and things just magically happen. But then Leah reached out and was like, hey, there's this amazing thing called Blue Check, where it's a little bit of an amalgam of a lot of foundations that we vet and make sure, and they can pivot really quickly so that it's not so static, whereas it's not just the food, or it's not just medical supplies. And I thought to myself, a year in, it's hard to go with specificity at this point, because you don't actually know where the war is, and you don't know where it's going tomorrow. And so the best thing you could do is just to associate and affiliate yourself with the people on the ground. That's how I got involved with it. In general, Blue Check is an umbrella for a lot of other NGOs that have been vetted and have people on the ground. It goes anywhere from medical assistance to humanitarian aid to assisting with orphans, anything and everywhere in between. But right now, the medical infrastructure in Ukraine is in desperate need. Blue Check's primary goal at the moment is to deliver life-saving generators, medical supplies to hospitals, especially the pediatric units. I'd like to say that I want to lead by example. Like, it's not one of those where I say, like, please donate. I make my 6 and 8-year-old, figure out a way to donate whatever they earn through chores. Like, I do think that giving back makes you feel like you're invested in the cause. And by being invested in the cause, you stay involved. I always looked at any gaming community as a very forward-giving community. Like you give your time to other people to be able to like level up, or you give your energy or your advice to other people because they wanted some sort of gear. Like it was always a very giving community. I love being a part of the World of Warcraft community. I feel like I'm still a part of it. I think people still associate me with it, which is so wonderful. It's the first gaming community I was ever a part of, with strangers that didn't really care who I was or what I was, and it was so much fun. I love being a part of it. Players of World of Warcraft can donate to Blue Check Ukraine. Simply log in to World of Warcraft or go to Battle.net shop and purchase Pet Pack for Ukraine to donate, which includes 2 adorable in-game pets, Sunny and Flurky, whose colors match the Ukrainian flag. Thank you to the community of World of Warcraft. You guys are awesome. And I love being a part of this community for so many reasons. I love the game, I love the people, and I love what people can do when they come together and find a common goal.
I actually do very much appreciate that. For all the smack talk I have for Blizzard as a company, and how I say I'll probably never play another Blizzard game again. To just see that, and whether you agree with the Ukrainian war, whether you agree with whatever politics crap that's going on right now, I think everybody can get behind humanitarian effort to actually help people.
Right. And if this is a way to do it by like selling pets and stuff like that, like I'm all for it. Like having to pay like $12 for a mount just to pay Blizzard, but having to pay like $12 for a pet that's going to go somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm definitely all for
actually
it.
going to do something for somebody.
Correct.
Not just pad Activision CEO $300 million bonus, but
correct. And to me, like, I think more companies should do something like that. Like even if like COD were to like sell their skins for like whatever relief that they want to do, like I would support that like 100%.
I mean, even if they were like
even
50,
if their battle passes were that way, right? Like every new season they have a new battle pass, right? So they can support a new foundation or federal or to me I think that would be so much more as far as
if you have a $10 battle pass, it's like, oh, okay, I'm buying a battle pass so that I can access stuff and get skins or whatever.
Right. But it's like,
but if it was a $10 battle pass and $5 went to supporting homeless veterans,
right,
$5 went to supporting PTSD treatment for veterans,
right, or the Wounded Warriors,
Wounded Warrior Project, like that, I could get behind that 100%.
And I would probably buy the battle pass every time, and then probably play for a month every time.
Yeah, no, and that's like because you feel bad, not necessarily you feel bad, but you just like you don't feel good when you have to spend money
on something that you already have
just to be able to play the game.
Correct.
Like it feels terrible, but when you're spending money and you're actually seeing good come from it,
right,
it's so much easier to make that decision.
Like to me, like DLC, when it comes to especially like single player games, right? To me, DLC is like, okay, this was content that was supposed to be in the original game. Why am I paying extra for it?
No, I get that.
And any DLC that we put out in our games will definitely not be charged because this is what we originally intended to be in the game to begin with. It just, reasons came out later.
Yeah, I mean, we put out an RTS, and then we release like a whole nother race that becomes playable. Like, I don't see a reason. I understand that a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of manpower went into creating that.
Right.
But why would you charge your players who bought your game?
Unless we're bundling it with something.
Yeah, if it was like an entire new release of the story to continue, and like upon this release, you gain access to additional, like that's one thing.
Like an expansion is different than DLC.
Correct.
Right. Expansion is like a whole new content that was separated because we couldn't tell it in the first one.
Yeah.
But like as far as like DLCs that are like little minor things, right? It's like, well, why do I have to pay like $20 for something that should have been in the game already?
Correct.
But like I said, if I don't know, I'm like rethinking some of our DLC content that to see if we can bundle it up with humanitarian stuff.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
And anything that we sell outside of the original game, I want to say that we give back to somebody.
Definitely something to have in one of our board meetings.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have today. This has been the status quo.
Light.
Yeah, that's true. Well, gamers and devs, that wraps up this episode of the status quo. We hope you enjoyed the dive into the world of gaming from our point of view. As we close today, we just want to say thank you for your support as we try to bring a positive, insightful, and entertaining content to you every week. If you'd like to stay connected with us beyond the podcast, follow us on all of our major social media platforms at Sundered_Gaming. You can also check out our website at SunderedGaming.com for any upcoming content, sneak peeks, and announcements about our games. Join us next week where we will discuss learning curves along with the easiest and hardest games to play. Unfortunately, we didn't get to discuss that this week because we were missing 2 of our members. That has been the status quo. Thank you very much.